Good morning. Good morning. I must say, when I say good morning, without the music, it's not the same. So it's definitely not the same. So welcome. Awesome to have you with us this morning. Really looking forward to this morning and to chat to you, and obviously having my guest, Nick Elston, who had to get up very, very early over in the UK this morning, but he's here. Really grateful that he's joining us, and we're going to be talking about emotional well-being and creating self-awareness, and sort of what are the things to look out for, but also how to work on emotional well-being and how can we help our clients with that. So really excited about that, and so can't wait to get into that with Nick. But as always, we also have the news. David Kopp is with us this morning, and excited to hear what's happened this week and what is the latest in financial services. And then also Norma talking about living in the and, which is something that sounds very intriguing to me, and looking forward to hearing about that. Then before I get into it, let me just say a quick good morning. Good morning, Ben, in very early at just after 6. So good morning, Ben. Thanks for saying hi. Govendra and Adrian, good morning. And Herman Lou, goeiemorgen Herman. I hope you are good over on LinkedIn. And if you are here, say good morning. Really awesome to have you here. Albert Fritz, good morning. Mark Bullock, good morning. Awesome to see all of you. And there goes my friend Rezaan Oosthuizen. Goeiemorgen Rezaan. Nick, you will also know Rezaan from the conference. So good morning. And with that, let's get ready. And I am going to give it over to the news studio and David Kopp to share the news with us.
Good morning, and welcome to this Friday again, and some news of the week. So start with some bad news, unfortunately. Stats SA released the unemployment rate in South Africa on Tuesday, and unemployment had risen from 32.6% to 34.4%. However, if we include the expanded definition of unemployment, which is people who have just given up looking for a job, unemployment currently stands at 44.4%. And if we consider the unrest in July, which has placed estimated 150,000 jobs at risk, as well as the continued shutdown of parts of the economy, we're really not looking good from an employment viewpoint, which is obviously going to affect us as financial planners and how we engage with our clients going forward. So definitely our high need is to ensure that our economic reform and economic growth happens and the creation of jobs. Then from a green paper to green fingers. So last week saw the release of the Social Development, Social and Security Reform Green Paper. This week we are looking to the Department of Agriculture, Land Reforms and Rural Development, who has presented its cannabis master plan to Parliament, detailing how marijuana could be incorporated into South Africa's business sector as part of government's ongoing drive towards legislation and commercialization. So the industry is estimated to be worth about 28 billion, and it could create some of those jobs, estimating that it could create between 10,000 and 25,000 jobs. Obviously, establishment of the cannabis industry will lead to diversification of the economy and thus increasing economic growth. It will create jobs and poverty alleviation, the department said in Wednesday in its presentation. So definitely a story for us to continue watching and seeing how that develops. I do believe that parts of our land is actually well suited to growing cannabis and marijuana crops. And besides the social aspect, there are apparently a lot of good business uses for it, including things like CBD oil going ahead. So that's one to watch with interest and see how it happens. Then news on the SARS front. So a man who defrauded several taxpayers, Kathelo Mashuli, was sentenced to 48 years of imprisonment for defrauding taxpayers. Essentially what it seemed to happen is that SARS investigated a complaint from a taxpayer and determined that the refund was paid into an F&B account, which the taxpayer knew nothing about. And further investigation saw that many other taxpayers had the same F&B account, and it was found that this person had put their account on taxpayers' details and received their refunds. Edward Kiswitter reiterated that if you're not using the SARS Direct channels, make sure that you are working through a registered and licensed tax practitioner. Then for our end piece on the good to know, in keeping with the cannabis story, did you know that in 1972, long before eBay, Amazon, students from Stanford University in California and MIT in Massachusetts conducted the first ever online transaction using an AppNet account at their artificial intelligence lab? The Stanford students sold their counterparts a tiny amount of marijuana. So yes, the first deal that was actually concluded over the internet was the sale of a bag of marijuana. Now, many people actually dispute that this was not sold over the internet because it was arranged over the internet, but the cash actually happened off the internet. So technically, it was facilitated by the computer. So the first transaction that happened over the internet was a friend who sold a Sting CD and using the credit card online. So again, some interesting developments and stories to watch. And back to you, Francois, in the studio.
Great stuff. I'm wondering, like, you know, I remember back in the day when we used to go to cinemas, like way back. I'm not talking recently. I talk about like in the 90s. Like we always started with the Stuyvesant Life and the, you know, almost said Guns N' Roses. What was that? Gunston or the Gunston 500 ads and things. So I wonder if those will make a return when you know, cannabis goes legal, or whether they will be subjected to the same sort of legislation in terms of marketing, which is going to be quite interesting. But anyway, so great stuff. Some interesting stuff there. Yeah, absolutely. And we will. Thanks, David. Thanks, you must have a fantastic weekend. Thanks for being here. And I'll chat to you soon. Cheers, man. Cheers. Yeah, we always have fun here on the show, right? With that, let's get into some personal development with my friend Norma. And she's talking about living in the end.
Good morning. I'm so glad to be back and excited for this topic of today. So the topic is living in the end. And this is just an alternative way of thinking when we get stuck in this all or nothing thinking that we sometimes just a mentality that we have. So what exactly is it then when I say living in the end? It's just really an antidote to this all or nothing thinking. The end is really the 50% good and the 50% bad about life, and that there's not only just one way. So we can have difficulties and we can do the hard things, that we can be sad about ending a relationship and we can be happy or have gratitude for the time that we spend with that person, that we can be a parent and we can have a career, and that we can love someone and we don't have to like what that specific person is doing at any given time. So really the aim is for us to use this to really, in a way that serves us, it really use it to get us closer to our goals, and really to stop us from really fighting reality, to see that there's more than just the extremes. So what we normally hear in relationships as an example is when someone says you're either in or out, or you are either with me or you're against me. That can be an example. So when our brain is really on default, it always wants to label and over dramatize and wants to tell us that it's either the one or the other and that we can't have both. But a perfect example is when something goes wrong in our day, for instance, and then another problem pops up, and then something happens in our city and something happens in the world, that our brain wants us to think that everything has gone wrong. But in actual fact, 3 things has gone wrong and 20 things are still right. And we do this with our goals as well. So we set goals and we're not happy where we are, and we think over there is going to be better. And then when we achieve those goals, we find that we still have problems. We just have a different flavor of problems. A TED Talk was done by a psychotherapist called Julie Larson, and I love the way that she explained this, and she spoke about the exact same topic and saying that living in the and is really to live purposefully and to experience heavy emotions, and that we can connect and balance and have meaning when we're living in the and. So when we're sad, we can connect with those around us. When we're stressed and we're very focused on a specific area of life and we spend all of our time there, we know that we can have balance to rest and play, or to be stressed and to relax. And when we have meaning in life, then there will always be hardships, but we have the confidence to know that it doesn't have to be easy, that we have confidence that we know that we can do the hard things. And then sometimes our language also doesn't support us in this new way of thinking, because we have these extreme words. And there's no real middle ground. So if I think of an example like good or bad, so what's the middle really? Or clean and dirty, or stressed and relaxed. So then we don't have words, so we have to resort to those extremes. And when we have anxiety, for instance, and we use those extremes, then it just encourages us or creates more of that anxiety. So what we can do a way around that maybe is to use a scale instead. So if I say, for instance, that my worst anxiety was a 10, and that maybe writing an exam gives me an anxiety on my scale of a 5, where am I right now with this challenge that I'm facing? Where's my anxiety levels on that scale? So that could be very helpful. So just to close off then, is that how can we live more in the and? Very simple. It's just to add a bit more gray into our lives. So just think in your own life, where could you find space to add a bit more of that gray? And how is that going to impact, for instance, your relationships? So think of, instead of saying it's my way or the highway, or you're either in or out, how would that impact your goals? So instead of saying that I want to do it perfect, or I don't want to do it at all. So if we add the gray, we can say rather, I want to make progress. And how would that impact our peace levels, for instance, to know that I can think a certain way and someone can be on the a complete opposite of me. So I think living in the and would just eliminate unnecessary suffering that we're causing ourselves. And most importantly, if we embrace the gray area, then we can stop fighting reality. That's what I have for you today. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again next week.
Thanks, Norma. And I think there's one sentence to sort of maybe summarize this. I would say, when faced with a choice, take both. All right, have a good weekend, and thank you so much. It's always very insightful. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you back next week.
Thanks so much. Okay, everyone, have a good weekend. Bye.
Thanks, bye. Alrighty, so before I introduce my amazing guest, let me run you just through a couple of announcements quickly. The first one is the next CPD event that takes place the 8th of September. That's Wednesday. And we're making a little change. We've been doing these in the evening for a long time at 7 o'clock at night. This one we're going to do at 8:30 in the morning. So somebody went like 8:30 at night. No, 8:30 in the morning. It's just an hour, and it's about from financial anxiety to financial wonder. And my special guest for this specific CPD event is going to be Hendrik Crawford, and that is what we're going to be talking about. So it is available right now for you to go and register. PROpulsion Pro members attend it for free. If you are not a PROpulsion Pro member, then there is a fee involved. So you are welcome to go check that out. You can just go to propulsion.co.za/wonder. And you are able to go and register and book your spot there. PROpulsion Pro members, you also need to secure your spot. There just won't be a payment once you indicate that you are a member. So, but please, you still need to go and register. So really looking forward to this one. It's something completely different. And Hendrik will be sharing a coaching framework of how to help clients from financial anxiety to financial wonder. So do attend that one. I think it's going to be an absolute fantastic session. So don't miss out. Then just a reminder that the Speaker and Influencer program is coming to a close. The application's on the 31st of August. So what does that give us? Another 4 days or so? Don't shoot me if my math doesn't work. I think it's 4 days. And we've got so many applications. We're sitting down on the 3rd of September to go through them and to see and then to take the process forward. But that is a huge opportunity that you do want to take part in. So please, if you are in a position where you feel like you want to learn about public speaking and you want the opportunity to maybe speak at a global financial planning conference next year in 2022, then go and apply. It is a fully sponsored program, but there's a lot of commitment necessary because it does run, I think, from January until April or so. So it is quite, Nick is one of the coaches, so really awesome to be able to have him on the show. But Nick is also one of the coaches. Dominic Galenzo, Adam Owen, and Kate Holmes are all part of the coaching team for next year. So really looking forward to that. Then just the last part that I do want to share with you is that we just some of the things that's coming up in PROpulsion Pro over the next few months. And we're really excited about this. There's a whole host of challenges. We've got the PCE challenge. So those that are going to write their CFP for next year, the board exam, we're definitely going to do a PCE challenge. We're going to do a 5-day marketing challenge, 5-day memory challenge. We've got the 5-day 360 view challenge. We've got a write a book in a day challenge that's coming up in November. Then we've got our monthly power hours where we spend an hour together, members only, and we discuss quite a few interesting things there. Then we also have a charity challenge in December. So really looking forward to that in the spirit of Christmas. We are going to do something very special there. And then obviously our monthly CPD events happening every month. And then the Global Financial Planning Conference. Don't know what it's going to be called next year, but that's also coming up and a big benefit there for our PROpulsion Pro members. And if you are interested, you can just go to propulsion.co.za/pro and go see what this is all about. If you've got any questions, get in contact with me. And otherwise, you can join and sign up right there on the site and become a member. All right, enough of that. Let's move on to my featured guest, who is the amazing Nick Elston. And I really look forward to getting into this discussion with him. And let me just clean up the screen there. So without any further ado, here we go. Good morning, Mr. Elston.
Good morning. Very cool intro, by the way. I like that.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, you got up so early this morning, and I think you threw 5 cups of coffee. It's your
the caffeine is kicking in there.
Yeah, it's your 3rd cap for the day as well. So welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. Just maybe as a very, very short introduction before I ask you to introduce yourself, is that for those of you that don't know Nick, I mean, I got to know Nick this year as part of the Speaker and Influencer program. Always seen him over on LinkedIn and saw this guy, and he's got this beautiful voice and he's really good at speaking. And I learned that, he is, in fact, he's a speaker, a very inspirational one at that. And, he's also talk a lot around mental well-being, which we can talk a little bit about later on as well. He's also a transformational speaking coach, which is why he's part of the Speaker and Influencer program. He's the founder of Forging People, and is also a passionate wearer of caps. You will never see him. I haven't seen you without a cap yet. It's somewhere. So, Nick, a warm welcome to PROpulsion Live.
Thank you very much. I'll have to do like a great unveil on here next year or something, just a big build up for it. It'd be great.
Awesome. We'll do it.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
It's a big pleasure. Nick, just maybe, that was a very high level, this is who Nick is, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that. Where did the Nick Elston story start?
Yeah, sure. So I think, like I said, the high-level overview, inspirational speaker on the lived experience of mental health. First question, yes, that is a job, I promise you. It's been my job for the past 6-7 years now. I share my experiences of my own mental illness and mental health to help increase kind of engagement in well-being and mental health initiatives for organizations and conferences and stuff worldwide. That's kind of what I do. I'm not solution-focused. I'm not a coach in that sense. The only coaching that I do is as a transformational speaking coach. And actually, for me, those two things go hand in hand because my speciality is around delivering emotion. It's about how we manage our emotional well-being when we speak, which can be really scary, as a lot of people would have experienced. But also it's about storytelling as well. But as you said, it hasn't always been that way. I actually my experience was mental illness, namely obsessive compulsive disorder in my childhood. It morphed into something called generalized anxiety disorder into my teen and adult life, and running it a sustained kind of period of burnout for a long time, until 2012. And in 2012, I had a breakdown, and speaking was my way back. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Well, that's quite interesting. I don't know if, I mean, like, I just want to stand there, still there for a second. Like speaking was your way back. You know, for a lot of people, that's such a big, it's even worse than anything else in the world. I think it's one of the scariest things in the world for anybody. And if I talk to people, say, they want to join the Speaker and Influencer program, they go like, no. You know, but just what about that process of starting to speak? And you said that's your way back. What about that was like the therapeutic, or what was the thing that sort of, you know, when you started realizing like, whoa, this is a very positive thing for me.
Okay, so I think you're right. I think Harvard, in a study, considered public speaking a greater fear than death. That we fear ridicule more than we do dying, and that's the kind of conditioning that we're fighting against. And conditioning and emotional well-being go really hand in hand. And I think for me, when I get too dark about this, it was either something that kind of point of breakdown was either going to consume me, or I had to let it out. So actually, when you're kind of faced with that decision, letting it out seemed the safer way to go in that sense. Initially, it was a very selfish move. I think there's certain times in your life where nobody's going to do this for you. So everything in me said this was going to be kind of like a really bad move. Everybody was going to dismiss me or judge me. And 2 weeks later, I actually went to the same event I had that breakdown outside of, and I shared what happened to me. But 100% it went the other way. And that, again, it really kind of wires in well to kind of we fear so much in terms of we feel we're going to be dismissed or judged when we start to open up about stuff. And fear is very much that false evidence appearing real. That's kind of what drives us, but it's very much based on falsehoods very, very often. And that morning where I stood up and I shared about OCD, I shared about kind of mental illness and my own experiences. It was a terrible talk. I was shaking, I was crying, but everything changed for me on that day, because 100% it went the other way. That everybody in that room queued up to give me their support. Like everybody in that room queued up to give me a hug. I love hugs. It's been 20 years down a hug in Paragon, missing in lockdown here. And the third thing, which changed everything for me, it suddenly wasn't about me anymore. By sharing my stuff with the truth, with capital T's, everybody felt safe enough to engage with me. And I think that's where I saw the power of being able to speak. I've not done that before at all, especially in a personal context. But when people hear the truth, then actually it builds that bridge of trust immediately to people, and they will share anything that they want to with you. And that's exactly what happened. And I guess that's where I saw the gap. I never wanted to be solution focused as a counselor or a therapist or a coach, even in that sense, when it comes to mental health work. For me, the gap was the engagement. And it's kind of like people are waiting for permission to reach out for help a lot of the time. And I see my mission here on earth is to give people that permission, is to make them feel safe and trusted enough by sharing my own stuff to allow them to share their stuff.
Yeah. And it's about this thing about being vulnerable. I attended a summit last night where they were also talking, it was all about live streaming and live video, and that's what it was about. But a lot of the things they were talking about was this thing about being vulnerable and authentic. And those are words that we throw around very easily. And there's been a few times on the show where I've been extremely vulnerable. I've made a couple of videos, like 1 or 2, where I just talk about how I feel and what's going on and so forth. And those seem to be the ones that get the best reaction, although that's never my intention. But I think it's, or let me ask you if you think, because I think, but let me hear what you think. Is it because whether we think the same thing? And I'm pretty sure I'm going to learn something here. It's more about the fact that people are thinking, like probably when you were going through your issues, you were thinking like you're the only one, everybody's so happy and everything's just well, and it's only you that have this issue and nobody will understand. But when you have the courage to speak up and you share what's on your mind, you share what's on your heart, you share what's going on inside of you, you share your struggles, people go like, I never would have thought, not Francois, not Nick. And suddenly they resonate with it because they realize, one, we're only human. And the second thing is that, it is just like, I'm not alone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't get up at this time in the morning for anybody. It's because I like you so much. So we're actually going to be aligned on this. I know we will be. But vulnerability is an interesting one. I mean, vulnerability, I guess it's got a really kind of bad rap to some as a term. Same as mental health. Mental health is just a neutral state. It's neither good nor bad. It's just a thing. Unlike mental illness, of course. But mental health, we all have. And I think it's the same with vulnerability. When you say to people that are really not ready to open up in any sense, that vulnerability is a scary, daunting word, that we feel that we have to go from saying nothing to sharing our life stories and our biggest adversities. It's not at all. Vulnerability could be when you're in front of a client and they're talking about a really difficult issue like grief, for example. Vulnerability could be, say, actually, yeah, I've experienced that. I kind of know how you feel on that. That's vulnerability. And what you do is you build a depth of relationship with your client or with your audience faster and stronger than you would if you didn't show any of yourself. I think certainly from traditional business perspective, in financial services generally, it's one of the last bastions of traditional business in that sense, that we've been taught not to show ourselves, that's the traditional way of doing things. But actually, if we show more of ourselves in a safer way as possible for you and the person, your audience that you're speaking to, then we do build a tribe of people that will follow you because they truly, truly get you. And like you said, none of us are unique on our experiences. We believe we are. But when we start to share that, we will find other people that are going through the same circumstances. I think it's really important to mention, actually, that vulnerability actually is, and authenticity as well. They are kind of throwaway terms now, I guess, but absolutely crucial when used in the right way to forge a relationship that's so strong. On the flip side, when it comes to public speaking and kind of anxiety management and stuff, vulnerability is one of the things that can really help you settle down from the start of a talk. That right from remember my first talk was kind of loosely in the financial services space. It was for Accountex, an accounting conference in London. I was speaking at a conference center. The first time I've spoken in front of a huge audience. And for me, it was kind of, the vulnerability was this. The first line of my talk, and I kid you not, was, I'm really anxious right now. Who the hell wouldn't be? I'm just about to bare my soul to 10,000 accountants, that kind of thing. And I actually just said that right from the start, which goes against every speaking handbook you'll ever read. But that vulnerability done two things. Firstly, it got a laugh, which is a tough gig sometimes. The second thing is that actually people wanted me then to succeed. They were on my side because I'd shared that vulnerability with them. And despite what you see on the news and what you hear kind of in a kind of global kind of streams and stuff, humans are essentially good. Humans essentially want you to succeed. But how do you expect the world to engage with you on your terms if you're not showing the world your true self? And I think that's what we really need to kind of get our heads around.
Yeah, that's some powerful stuff. Just on a lighter note before I ask you the next question is like one accountant on their own is scary enough. Like now you have 10,000. I can only imagine what that is like. But from an emotional well-being point of view, Nick, I mean, what are we really talking about when we say emotional well-being? Because it's also a word. I mean, we've heard about emotional intelligence, EQ. We often talk, particularly on this show, also about sort of the impact of emotions on your actions and those kind of things, because it's such a powerful thing. But I mean, we can have a whole talk about what sort of drives your emotions and so forth. But emotional well-being, sort of what, in your view, what does that sort of look like? Because I don't think there's an exact definition, right? It's like whatever it means to you.
Absolutely not. And I think that's the first thing, is to define those objectives. If I said to somebody, okay, what to you means happier, stronger, smarter, they're all really subjective terms, and it means different things to different people. Therefore, your playbook to kind of master your emotional well-being will be different. It really aligns with Norma's fantastic slot just now. I really enjoyed that, because we have this boom and bust mentality to things like emotions. That you take anxiety, for example. Anxiety is a really healthy mechanism. It's our brain telling ourselves there's a danger, go careful. It's keeping ourselves safe. But it's when it gets out of control that therein lies the problem. So it's not about getting rid of anxiety. It's about managing. It's about living with it. It's about using it as a tool as opposed to something which is keeping us back. And I think we need to take that kind of approach to our emotion. For me, emotional well-being relates to courage and confidence and conviction. kind of belief, and even things like belonging. Interesting, because belonging is a big subject that I work in with lots of different communities, and mental health is one of the things that can affect our sense of belonging. People that have experienced mental illness or mental health challenges on the call right now will know that at that time that it affects your sense of aspiration. It affects, we don't believe we can be any better, any more than where we are right now. It keeps us in our comfort zones. It stops us living a life or even running a business on our terms. So it's a really kind of big issue for me. We need to really define what that looks like, because the first thing that we struggle with when we struggle with our mental health, I think the first thing we sacrifice is choice, our right to choose to go into each and every day. But we cannot control the uncontrollable. We cannot control pandemics. We cannot control other people, what they say, what they do. There's so much that we cannot control. The only thing that we can control is how we do choose to go into each and every day, knowing that that day may not go our way. We may get blindsided. We may get knocked on our bottom straight away. How do we get back? So it's about building resilience for sure, but having a playbook of things that works for you to bring yourself back. And I think that's the key to kind of unlocking our emotional well-being in that sense, is knowing what do you actually love to do and doing more of that. Because personal development, like everything, like diet plans, like anything else that you've tried to take on all in one go, again, that boom and bust kind of mentality, it can be daunting because it'd be scary and it's easy to give up. So for me, it's about breaking those things down into kind of daily, incremental, consistent changes, changing and tweaking one little thing every day, and fine-tuning your emotional well-being. We know when we're feeling happy. We know when we're feeling a bit meh. I think we have all the answers we'll ever know. We just need to start to ask ourselves the right questions and then move out of our own way.
Like, I mean, you're talking about like you should know, or you would know, or, you know, like what you feel like, etc. So that comes down to self-awareness. I remember, and I've told this before, like back in 2000, I think it was 2000, but it was the first time ever that Big Brother was aired on TV in South Africa. And I was young at the time, you won't believe it. But I was sitting there, and they had these diary room sessions where each participant would go into that diary room and then they would share, and Big Brother would be asking them questions and they would share, and I sat there and I thought to myself, like, how do you even know this about yourself? Like, all I cared about was playing action cricket and having a braai and did things like that. I never took the time to sort of get to know myself. That I thought I knew myself, but like the things they were talking about, like, I don't know if I was of the thing that I just don't care about it. And then fast forward to 2015, suddenly I spent a lot of time on getting to know myself, because I sort of realized that is the key to finding happiness, to finding your purpose, to doing those kind of things. But I mean, how do we create self-awareness? Like, how do you get to know yourself and understand, you know, what's going on inside and why you think about things in a certain way? Like, how do you cultivate that?
So again, there's so many things to kind of, you can, rabbit holes we can duck off down here, but I think maybe a couple of things to focus on. And I mentioned one of those things already, that kind of conditioning element, that we need to start to break our conditioning. We need to set out on this mission to prove ourselves wrong, because most of the time we are, first of all, we're hardwired to look for danger. We're hardwired to look for fear. So by default, we'll talk ourselves into a losing game. Public speaking, of course, is a great example of that. Well, who am I to speak in front of these people? Or what if they hate me? What if they heckle me? What if they don't love me? All that kind of different stuff going on. So I think that's really, really important to recognize. In terms of the way that you go forward with that, in terms of changing that kind of conditioning, it comes down to narrative. It's tuning into how do you talk to yourself and what habits you run on. One of the exercises I like to share with an audience is to say, right, wake up tomorrow morning and question everything that you say and everything that you do. It's a tiring day. So, okay, you wake up at 6 or 5 today because it's you. But you wake up at 6 in the morning. Why do you wake up at... No, that's cool. Why do you wake up at 6 in the morning? Is that because you've always done it that way? Or is it because it's good for you? Or is it, could you do with more sleep? Could you do with less sleep? really start to break down each of those kind of daily kind of chunks that you go through, most of the time you find you run on habit. Why do you wake up next to them? Maybe is a question you haven't asked in a while. I just throw that in. It's kind of one of those questions that we consider more of a pure belief. There's so many unquestionables that we just don't, we're not going to question that. That seems too scary. Those are the things that we need to start to really question. And if anybody gets divorced following this, I was never here, taking me off the billing. But go through your day, talk, like kind of asking yourself those questions, why do you do it? And tune into that narrative, tune into how you talk to yourself. Because most of the time, like I said, we talk ourselves into a losing game, but we talk to ourselves worse than we would any of our close friends. And that's the damaging part. And I think self-awareness comes from having those honest conversations where you move out of your own way. There's a phrase that I love that says, who are you when no one's looking? Ask yourself those things when you have no one to live up to. The Big Brother example is great. It's a great example that the diary room is meant to be kind of like secure and that kind of stuff, but it's not. They're on national television. So they're not going to be given the answer to themselves that they would, because they know that they're facing a public. So take away any outside influences. I recognized this when I came off of social media, actually. When I left Facebook and Instagram and Twitter early last year, what I found was that suddenly without I was doing things without the kind of the expectance of sharing, the expectance of likes or comebacks. And I was just doing stuff because I wanted to do it. And I was doing stuff because it just felt good to do it. Or I didn't because it was just a waste of time. I didn't realize it because I didn't question it. So start to break down your day and start to question everything you do.
So would that be also a way to sort of, because my question would be like, what do we need to look out for? Like, when do you know that, look, you need to pay more attention to your emotional well-being? You need to just be more aware of what's going on. You just need to be maybe a little bit more deliberate in your thinking, in your doing, etc. So, I mean, are there certain, like, always like you're driving on a road, you see these road signs, you know, we tend to, if you drive the same road, like often you stop looking at the signs, you don't see them anymore. So what are the things that could be cues for us to say, maybe stand still for a second and just think about this?
I think some of the kind of red flags for me would be around if you start to feel, obviously, lack of energy, lethargy. It could be high sensitivity. That's my biggest trigger, I would say. Or it could be high aggression, maybe. Defensive behavior. You feel that you're constantly kind of standing your ground against everybody. I think the other two kind of big ones that led to my sustained burnout and in turn my breakdown were firstly, it's masking behavior. If you feel that you're never being yourself, you're trying to be what people want to see in you. You're trying to be what situations demand of you, but you sure don't damn show yourself because you're scared of showing yourself. You don't feel that you have enough about you to do that. So you say yes to people you want to say no to, that kind of stuff. And I think the second thing around that is about checking your diary and your calendar. So if I ask you to get your diary and your calendar out right now, is there a part of your day today that's exclusively reserved for you alone, rest and recovery and recharge so that you can go again strong tomorrow? Just 30 minutes doing something that you love to do, something that restores you. Because it used to be sleep, but we don't do that anymore. We go to bed to crash and we go again tomorrow. And you can only run for so long until you stop. And I think therein lies the problem, is we don't see it at the time. Trust me, as somebody who's been there, I don't want you to get there, that we don't see it at the time, but it will happen. You will stop. So for me, those were certainly the telltale signs.
Yeah, and just, I've been having a conversation with somebody recently, Nick, where it's exactly the same thing. And I did this and still do this sometimes, where specifically, and this is why, you know, the audience is mainly independent financial advisors or financial advisors. And because like, it's almost a case of when you don't work, you don't earn revenue. You know, obviously some people have built their businesses to different levels where they don't need to do that as much, but particularly in the beginning, and some people take 3 years to get going, some take 5, 10, some take 20 years to get going. And you just keep on plowing and plowing and plowing. And, you know, you think it's fine. That's how it should be because we've been taught that we need to work hard. We need to push hard. And if you keep doing that, guess what's going to happen? You're going to reach success. When, you know, people who work hard usually do that. But like last year, a lot of people were telling, and I got upset. I said this on the show before, like when somebody tells me, well, you need to look after yourself and you need to take time out. Like I get like, no, you don't know what, like I'm driving a vision, I'm working, this isn't work for me, right? And the other big thing is like, if I don't do it, it ain't going to get done. So that's the excuses that I now hear, because then I got very close to that point where I just couldn't anymore. And luckily, it, early enough, I sort of could step away and take it a little bit slower. And I'm now very aware, like when I start feeling that way, I start like, no, screw this. This can wait for 2 days or 3 days or a week sometimes. So, I think that's the big thing. But there are still so many people stuck in like, I've got to do this, head down, work hard, and I think that's always a disease of our where we are in the world at the moment. I would say.
Yeah, I think so. I think also it's a case of having to work clever. That, like I said, without you, there is no business. But I absolutely get it. I mean, when I first kind of set out on my kind of journey of self-employment, entrepreneurship, whatever you want to call that thing, I was taking exactly the same approach. Trust me, it's really hard to take your own advice. But I was not doing it. I was throwing everything I can and less successful. Now, there is certainly the kind of the increase in profile and visibility and that kind of stuff obviously helps things, but actually without your mental health or your health generally, there is no business in that sense. I think that's a really tough thing. So it's not about working hard, it's about working clever. And there's lots of different, I can see people just on the call now that are great coaches, great people that work very, very clever, and they can help other people work clever by sharing their kind of nuggets and gems and pearls of wisdom as well. But for me, it's essentially is treating yourself as if you were your best client, and actually having that distance between you and your business, to treat it with that distance in that sense, with taking that overview of actually asking, why do you do this stuff? Because a lot of the time we're running our business based on an old model. We're running our business based on our own fears that although it's true that everything that you've ever done and everything that you've ever said and everything that you've ever been has led to exactly where you are right now, it is what you do next that counts. But the problem is we always put our blueprint from the past and our kind of experiences from the past into our planning for the future, personally and professionally. So very often you'll find people ending up in the same relationships. You'll find businesses being run exactly like the corporates that they come away from, because we've got this kind of blueprint that we're trying to stick to subconsciously a lot of the time. So absolutely reach out for people, coaches and stuff that you trust, people that you recommend, and try to get that kind of third eye perspective on stuff. But for me, it's working smarter. It's not working harder, it's working smarter. In fact, working less would be better. But working out how that could actually look. And I think now more than ever, there's lots of ways to do that in terms of communities and obviously online content and stuff. I mean, in March last year, all of my work as a speaker, as a coach, was done in person. None of it was done online. And actually my business died overnight completely. And over the last 18 months, I had about a period of 3 months after that period where nothing was coming in. And then I had to evolve. And now actually the business is far stronger. I work less. So it took a pandemic to teach me that. And I think we need to kind of take that step back sometimes and recognize that we have everything that we need in front of us. We just need to put it in the right order. It's like having the right ingredients, not having the right recipe.
Yeah, I recently had Juanita Foster here on the show, and we were talking about staying in the helicopter, which is taking a day out or a week out, whatever time you need to go and look at things from a totally different angle, and take that time out to spend time on these things. And that's sort of the funny thing, that we know we need to do this, but we're so busy that we never take time out, because if I take time out, it means something's going to stop on this side. And it's the most valuable thing I think that one could do, is just stepping away and just saying, let me really look at this, and then involve different people to talk, because people have got fantastic ideas. You would like, and people you would never expect it from, like they kind of go, why do you do it? Like, even if they know nothing about what it is that you and I or anybody else does, they kind of like, why do you do it that way? Just like, and you go like, yeah, I wonder why I'm doing it that way. It's almost like you said, like we've always done it, like this.
Again, this is where having a community such as yours is an amazing resource. Genuinely, I'm not saying this because I'm on here now. Genuinely, it's an amazing resource to have a group of like-minded people that are forward-thinking and proactive, to, even if you don't take on the ideas and the advice, just to immerse yourself in that kind of thinking is really powerful. But this does kind of come back to questioning everything again, in the sense of a lot of the time that we drive ourselves so hard to do something, especially in business, is because actually we either have a fear of what we're coming away from, what we could go to. It could be that we're trying to kind of stick two fingers up to somebody that had wronged us before, or sacked us, or did us bad, in that sense that we're driven by fear. We need to change the way that we're driven, and therefore we'll change the way that we work today. So again, it comes down to two things, really. It's asking yourself the right questions, and then whatever the answers are, is to fully accept that. And I think once you've done that, we can then, what I found is, even in the mental health kind of community, I guess, that essentially in life, people just want to be heard and they want to be understood. And as long as you can fulfill those two things for anybody, they find their own way forward. And it's the same with ourselves as well. We need to have that same conversation with ourselves to work out why are we driving ourselves so hard? Who's told you that you're not good enough? Who's told you that you cannot do that? Then you'll have your answer.
Yeah. Just before I get to the next part, so when I sort of started chatting to somebody, when I went through that 2015 period, she asked me, so how long is it going to take for you to go from where you are now, which is basically, where's the bottom on the screen, like bottom, to there where you need to be, to get back to where you won't have the stress, how long will that take? So like any normal human being, I would say, I said to her, I've obviously avoided committing to anything. So I said to her, I don't know, like a year, 18 months, I don't know, 3 years, I don't know. And she let me talk my story and blah, blah, blah. And then she said to me, Francois, it doesn't necessarily have to take that long, you know that. And that's quite we can change things quite quickly, which is quite amazing.
Absolutely is.
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot about us, so what can we do? But then also we work with clients that, obviously are going through the same stuff. So do you have any kind of advice or thoughts around, so obviously if I'm working on this for myself, how can I help my clients?
Okay.
Like sort of almost a thing of paying it forward kind of thing. But because we in that game in financial services where we get to the intricate parts of people's lives. So we get to know more about what's going on with them than the accountant would probably know. The accountant would know the bank accounts and the business and all of those kind of things, but they won't necessarily know the personal side. That's where we get involved. No. So how can we help clients?
So again, this still comes back down to self-protection. It still comes down to recognizing that self-care is not selfish, that it is crucial. I'm sure we've all heard that old airplane adage that we need to put our oxygen mask on first to be strong enough to help those around us. And actually in your business, in your industry, you're in a position where your relationship with your clients could be really, really strong. They could have a lot of trust with you, a lot of rapport with you. So therefore will tell you anything. And especially if you are showing more vulnerability, being authentic, encouraging emotions and stories that in a two-way conversation, that will flow. So we can help our clients in terms of by listening to them, signposting them to the help, especially when it comes to things like mental health, signposting them to the help that they may need. Because if people have that level of trust and rapport with you, that they trust you with their whole livelihood, with their finances, with their personal life, their professional life, they will trust you enough to speak about the other big taboo subjects. Because money is a taboo subject outside of your industry, trust me. And it's big, it's up there. That's why financial well-being is such a huge kind of subject, I guess. But when it comes to that, they could talk about sexuality or gender or race or grief or abuse or all these kind of things that we carry around that we just don't talk about. Actually, you could be in one of the privileged positions, and it is a privilege to listen and to talk to them about their stuff. However, your responsibility is not to fix them. As a non-medical professional, same as me, it's the reason why I'm always up front and not solution focused. You can have a conversation without taking on the burden of that responsibility. So I guarantee if, sorry to single out Russell, but I've got Russell on the chat box right here just now. If Russell has 20 clients, then he has 21 burdens potentially on his shoulders before he even goes home. That's a huge responsibility. So therefore, you could find yourself having sleepless nights, worrying about lives that are not your own because you are personally invested. So it is about self-protection. setting boundaries, as I mentioned already, around how you can help your clients, but also how you can't help your clients as well, but making sure that you have lots of different places that you can signpost to when it comes to supporting them in any given challenge, building a playbook for your clients on anything that they're experiencing in life. And of course, the things that you are professionally trained and educated to do, that's stuff you do for them. But by setting those boundaries, you set those expectations. And when we set expectations with people, then that's where the kind of the true sweet spot lies, because actually then they don't put the pressure on you to fix something that you cannot fix.
Yeah. And I think, taking it is that, if I can summarize what I just heard you say, Nick, is that we need to sort of help drive awareness, create awareness, help people identify that there's something, but then also be able to point them in the right direction, but not to be that direction, sort of. Don't be the person that you point them to, because it's just not your job. And when we don't have the abilities, even if you've gone through this yourself and you think like, whoa, I've turned my life around. Just send them in the right direction. So this is why it's important to build like a professional sort of network within your business. It's not only partnering with lawyers and partnering with accountants and tax professionals and so forth. It is also about connecting with psychologists, maybe. It is also connecting with coaches.
Absolutely.
It's connecting with all different types of professions.
Absolutely forging relationships in communities that are not your own as well. I mean, you can be, I've done work with correcting the kind of gender imbalance in professional speaking. I work in Black and ethnic minority groups. I work in LGBTQ plus groups, lots of different communities that are not my own, because actually we can use our platform and our awareness and our professionalism to champion people that may not have that voice or platform. So this becomes a cause. And actually, when you turn, as we all know, when you turn your business into a passion, into a cause, it doesn't seem like work anymore. And actually, it becomes more human in that sense. So it encourages more human conversations.
Yeah. So, Nick, I mean, in summary around what we've talked about today, like, what is your one big thought that's coming up with you that you want to share with people around this topic?
Okay, so I guess the biggest question to ask yourself, given my space, I guess, is around anxiety, which I think, given obvious reasons, lots of different levels, that we've all experienced day to day. Now, the one question to ask yourself when you're feeling anxious or stressed about anything is to ask yourself the question, is this fact or is it the story that I'm telling myself? And the story is the narrative. We talk ourselves into a losing game. Very small example that I was delivering to a school, and a young lady said to me, what really makes her anxious is when she messages her friend and a friend doesn't message her back. But that's not what makes her anxious. What makes her anxious, that's more of a transaction. What makes her anxious is the story she's telling herself, that she's been offended, she doesn't love her anymore, we've fallen out, we've been dismissed, been rejected. And actually, by the end of the session, she had heard back from her friend, but that's by the by. We can apply that rule to anything that we're experiencing right now. If it's fact, if what you are worried or anxious or stressed about is fact, then we can reach out for help. We can stand up to that. We can ask questions, have human-to-human engagement around that. But most of the time, it's not. Most of the time, it's a story. We talk ourselves into a losing game. Change your narrative. Start to set out on this mission to prove yourselves wrong. And after a while, you'll train yourself to recognize not everything is a danger.
Amazing. So, Nick, just quickly, you will also be talking at the Financial Planning Conference in October. Is it end of October? When is that happening?
I believe so. I haven't got the dates to hand. Seema's on the call now. So, hey, thank you very much for your comment as well. I'm really excited for this one. Really, really excited for this one. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So really looking forward to seeing you there, whether it's going to be on a screen or on stage. I don't know. I hope it's on stage.
But sadly, this year it's screen. The restrictions in the UK are still terrible. But hopefully, who knows? Next year, maybe we'll all be in person. We'll have a big group hug.
Yeah, no, now you're talking. And then also the Speaker and Influencer program, where, those that put their hand up for that will have the opportunity to work a little bit more personally with you, in the sense of like the sessions, the live sessions. It's more intimate and all of that. So are you excited for that?
Always very, very excited for that. My angle is that emotional storytelling side. So it's always a lot of fun. It's powerful sessions, but yeah, really excited for this.
Amazing. Nick, from all of us and specifically from me, just thank you so much. Thank you for getting up so early and for making your coffee and for,
Cheers.
sort of lining up the caps to get the right one. I really appreciate it. It's been amazing. This has been one of the best and most valuable sessions really and conversations that I've had on here. So just a big thank you.
Thank you very
Where
much.
where can people connect with you, by the way? I almost forgot to ask that. That's important.
Just very simply, it's just nickelston.com. You can contact me through everything on there.
Okay, so awesome. So I've got it on screen there, nickelston.com. There's also a link on the YouTube channel down below. I've got the links there. The links are not on LinkedIn and on Facebook because then nobody sees the post, so I don't put it on there. But down in the description on YouTube, if you come back to the recording as well, or you're here right now, all the links are down there. You can connect with him on LinkedIn as well as go through to his website. Nick Elston, I wish you only the best. Be blessed and keep raising the bar, my friend.
Will do.
All right. Cool beans. Thank you so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Almost time for the weekend, but first, Friday lies ahead, and I hope it's a fantastic one for you. Have a great weekend. Stay safe, and as I always say, remember to raise the bar. Bye-bye.